Now today I spent most of the day testing out the new Wacom Mobile Studio Pro, and I can already tell you it's an awesome device. So last week you actually saw me going through some of the basics, and today I'm actually going to show you what we did during retouching, calibration. We got a new keyboard in, and of course I'm also going to show you how the unit performs. This is still a behind the closed doors, meaning it's very roughly filmed. It's only one camera, no fancy audio, as you saw in the beginning. Of course we are going to do a proper video, of course, as soon as I know everything about the machine. There is one thing, and it's kind of a big thing, but we're working on it, that doesn't work the way I want yet, and that's power. Now, the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro does pretty long on a charge. Well, I just retouched a whole session from Puka from this weekend and it didn't stop, so that's more than enough power. But I want to be able to use it in the field, and that means that I need more power than just a battery. Now, when shooting tethered, you won't have any problems. You can shoot probably all day, and we're going to test that out soon. But if you want to do retouching and capturing, the battery can drain pretty fast, and that's also on a MacBook Pro, so don't blame the Wacom for this. Now, with the MacBook Pros we actually use something called a Hyperjuice. That's an external battery pack, and well, it has a USB out 12 volts, and we want to use that also on the Mobile Studio Pro. So I ordered a special cable from USB to USB-C to charge, and somehow that doesn't work. And we also have another battery pack which we're gonna try. And well, let me put it this way, this is something that we're still working on, and I will keep you guys updated on that. Everything else is working just fine, and everything else is absolutely the way I want it. So I'm going to show you very quickly some retouching, the stand, the keyboard, and some other stuff. So enjoy today's episode of Behind the Closed Doors, especially dedicated to the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro. Okay, the Wacom stand isn't available yet for us, so we are using actually this Trust, and it's a very simple and rather cheap device which we normally use for our iPads, because we also use the iPads at home as a remote control. This is it flat, and you can just pull this out and put it in any angle you want. So very simple, it's pretty lightweight, and we can just take the Mobile Studio Pro, place it in there, and there we go. So that's the stand. Now, if you want to use it as a laptop replacement, you better also get a keyboard. And I love keyboards that have integrated touchpads like this. Now, the keyboard I used before, well, that didn't do the job. I absolutely hated the way it worked. The keys were very bad, and the touchpad, it just didn't work at all. So we ordered the Logitech K830, and this one is absolutely awesome. This is exactly what I want. It has illuminated keys, so in the dark they will actually light up. The touchpad is much better than the one on the previous Logitech, and this keyboard has Bluetooth. And this is very important because the Mobile Studio Pro has 3 USB-C ports. You don't want to lose one of those ports for a dongle. So make sure that when you buy a keyboard you use a Bluetooth keyboard. And the 830, absolutely great keyboard, and it's very affordable. Now, as a Mac user, I do miss certain things, and that's how to start your apps. When I go down here, I think everything is pretty small, and I don't want all the apps here. I want something like a dock. So we went online and we actually found something called Rocket Dock. Looks very much like a Mac, right? And even when you click on it, it makes that little jump before it opens up. So, Rocket Dock, really nice. The other thing is, and you can see that up here, is actually some widgets that we have running. Because I'm testing at the moment, I want to see what the cores are doing and my RAM and the swap. I want to see what the battery is doing, what my network is doing, and well, the data is also pretty nice. And here we have the trash. And this is actually an app called Rain Meter. And for a lot of PC users, this will probably ring a bell because it seems to be incredibly popular and also very powerful. And I can only say I absolutely love it. You can do a lot of stuff on the desktop, and don't do too much, I think, because it will be very cluttered. But this I really like, and I can see exactly what my computer is doing. So Rocket Dog and Rain Meter, highly recommended. Another thing I really miss as a Mac user is of course AirDrop, but we also found an app for that. So let's go up and start the app, and I hope I pronounced this correct, Zapier. So this is a free app and you just start it up, and the only thing you have to do is as soon as it's done with enabling the hotspot, and again we're gonna make better videos of this, guys, this is just to get it out to you guys as soon as possible. You just click up and now it's looking, and on my iPhone I start exactly the same app, and there we go, it already found my iPhone. I can press connect and there we go, and the only thing I now have to do is, for example, get some of the images from today, and I can just drag these into the sent file. And they're now already on my iPhone. So that solves the problem for AirDrop. And I have to be totally honest, AirDrop never really worked as flawlessly as this. AirDrop works, and when it works it's awesome, but when you have two machines that don't find each other pretty well, it can be terrible. And this up until now works flawlessly every single time. Now, although the Mobile Studio Pro looks like a tablet, it's of course a full-blown Windows machine. And it has a great screen, 4K with 96% Adobe RGB. And that also means that we have to calibrate that screen. So I'm now installing the software for the x-rite color monkey photo, which I'm going to use to calibrate the screen. And I'm going to show you guys how we do that too. Okay, to connect the color monkey we of course use a dongle. As you can see here, it's just USB dongle to USB-C. And now we can connect the color monkey to the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro and do our setup. Okay, let's calibrate our screen. We're going to start up the software. And we're going to choose Profile My Display. Now in this case we're going to choose a laptop, because we don't have any user settings. So, and user settings actually we mean that you can set contrast, brightness. So let's go to Advanced. And this is something that's very tricky and you have to be careful with this. Set the luminance level of my display based on my current ambient light conditions. I would never recommend doing that, for the very simple reason ambient light also has color temperature, and in your editing space I think there should be no ambient light hitting your screen. So let's do this. Set the luminance level of my display to the target value, and for me that's actually 120. Now I don't know if the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro will actually achieve that 120, but I'm still going to put it on there. And of course adjust your white point balance to D6500. This is incredibly important because this is the standard for video and of course photography. And now do next. Connect your device. There we go. And now on the device you actually have to turn it, and as you can see here I already did, and make sure that the opening on the bottom is actually closed, as you can see here. Now it looks like it's open, but it's not. This is open, this is closed. Okay, now to be absolutely sure, just place it like this, so that there's no light hitting the sensor. And now just press calibrate. What it now does is it builds a base noise level. In other words, it will make sure that the calibration of the analyzer is 100% correct. So you can trust your analyzer after doing what we sometimes call a dark reading, because it actually meters the dark. Alright, it's in the correct position. Now make sure that you open up that slider here. So let me do that for you guys. So I'm going to open up the slider to make sure that it can meter, and then we put it on the screen and we're ready to calibrate. It's in front of the screen, press next. Okay, make sure that it's around that area, which you actually see on the screen, by the way. Place color monkey here. The software is not actually meant for smaller displays, but that doesn't matter because the patterns are actually full screen. So just press next. And here you can see unable to save original profile. That's no problem, just press OK. That can happen. And just put it here. As you can see now, profiling is in progress. It's doing a contrast test, and after that it will do everything else, including your grayscale and of course red, green and blue and some other colors. And after that you're done. It's all automatically, so you don't have to do anything. Isn't that easy? And the calibration is already done. Make sure that you give it a name that's actually fitting. So in this place it's display 1 D6500, and I always give it the date, so it's now December 13, so December 13. Now it's very important that you do this calibration every week or every 2 weeks. Save, and here we can actually say, okay, do it again in 4 weeks. Go to next, and now you can see a before and after. Before, and it will give this arrow because it was never calibrated, and after. As you can see, the screen gets dimmer, and that's because in the end we got a lot more light output than 120. Now, because I find it very important to also be able to retouch in, for example, the sun or outside, I want maximum brightness. So I'm actually going to run the calibration again, but now on a much higher light output. Now, for proper reproduction work, we always advise 120 CDM. For this kind of devices, well, you can see it. We can get a lot more light out of it. So I'm actually going to run the calibration again and put in 250, because it actually topped out at 246. So 250 should be pretty safe, because in this case I would rather sacrifice a little bit of my color accuracy for light output. And in essence you don't really sacrifice your color accuracy. It's just that when you have a brighter display and you print, the print will look a little bit duller. So this is way more towards print, while this of course is way better to retouch when you have a little bit of ambient light. So you have to make a sacrifice there, more in terms of when you look at print. And of course when you're in the studio it's pretty dark and you can get away with much lower light output. With a tablet like this I want maximum light output and of course proper grayscale. Okay, so I told you there was a lot more light output. However, when you go into your settings, you can see that you can't get any higher than 140, because normally, again, these display calibrations are used for getting it correct on print, so you don't need a lot of light output. So we have to fake this a little bit, so we have to help the computer. So let's go here into settings. Let's go to system and just lower my brightness of my screen to, let's say, 30%. Oops. Go to OK. And now when I put it on maximum brightness, I can later always change this back with the brightness settings in the configuration screen. So let's see if this works. Okay, this is much better. It now tells me that my target luminance is 140 and my measured is 121, which is actually perfect for print. So I'm not going to touch this. What I'm now going to do is go next, and I'm going to tell you in the next scene why I do this. Well, calibration finished, and this is the before and this is the after, and you should not be able to see any difference in color, because we already had a proper calibration. However, you see a difference in brightness. Where with the first calibration everything became way too dark, we're now back at the normal light output. Now you have to remember, when you do something like this, how was the setting of your display brightness. Now we want to end up at 120, as I told you before. Now I lowered the brightness of my screen. Let's go here. Let's go to settings. So I lowered the output of my screen to 30%. So that means that I have to remember that every time I put this screen on 30%, it's absolutely accurate for print. When I want to retouch outside and I want a little bit more brightness, I can simply just drag this up to 100. And now I got a stunning light output, which is even more than out of the box. Because now I have a before and after. So as you can see, we actually are able to pull a little bit more light out of the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro. It's not much, but it's a little bit more. Now it's very important that I can still see all the detail in the whites over here, and I can. So this is the setup for calibration, and it's very simple, guys. Again, remember, we want to have a target of 120 light output to mimic print. So we have to turn down the brightness to 30%. And when we want to retouch outside, we turn up the brightness all the way and we still have proper color balance. Well, probably, but at least we have a lot of light output. So that's the tip for calibration, and it goes for all portable devices, by the way. So let's go to next, and we're done. Okay, let's take a look at our retouching process and how smooth that goes. This is capture 1, and of course we're used to using the trackpad to go through all the images, but with a touch display it can be way better. As you can see here, we just scroll through the images until we see one we like, let's say this one. Now of course when we normally want to zoom into an image, we use the loop, which is here, and you can zoom in on an image. There we go. Or of course you can use this, where you can actually zoom into 400% or 100%. But with a touch display, you can of course make sure you're on the hand, and the hand has to be on pen. And there we go. And now you can actually go through your image like this. And as you can see, it goes pretty fast. These are 42 megapixel files, and it goes pretty fast. Okay, so let's say we want to retouch one of these images. Of course you can do edit in, but with the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro you have these hard keys. Now I programmed these hard keys to actually open up my recipe, for example when I press this one. And now it will open up this image straight into Photoshop. So as soon as it's done processing, it will open up Photoshop and you can start your retouch process. Okay, we're now into Photoshop, and here you actually see exactly the same thing. We can zoom in and you can even rotate your display. This is awesome when you draw, because normal paper you can also of course skew around like this, and it all goes pretty well. So this is actually how you can retouch your image, but of course you guys want to know how it is to draw on this tablet. So I'm going to show you that too. Okay, now this is the part where I'm really uncomfortable, because I'm not a digital artist. I don't know how to draw. I love to doodle and I love to draw, and sometimes when you see my images online, I get a lot of good responses from you guys. Thank you so very much for that. But this is the part where I absolutely don't know what I'm doing. So I opened up Manga Studio, and why Manga Studio and not Photoshop? For the very simple reason, Manga Studio has a really cool setting over here called stabilization, and this is something that I do need to get proper line work. So it actually stabilizes the brush. Now I turned it off for this demo because I don't want to show it with delay. Now at the moment I'm using a textured brush, and these textured brushes are always very, very slow. So this is not a worst case scenario, but pretty much close to worst case scenario. So let's see what it can do. Okay, so nice, right? But it's all the same line. Now let's see what it can do with pressure sensitivity. Now let's start out really soft and then build it up. Now this is pretty nice because it starts like this, and by pressing harder you can actually create all the way up to this. Now this is nice. So how fast is it with image stabilization on? So let's turn the stabilization here and let's see what we can do. And this is with a lot of image stabilization. As you can see, now it lags, but that's normal. Also on a Mac Pro with two D700s, this lags approximately the same, which goes a lot for Wacom, because I'm used to this on a monster machine, and this one doesn't lag a lot more. So let's go to a different brush and show you why I like Manga Studio. Okay, I selected another pen, and when I draw, I love to draw cartoons or comics. Now this again is with maximum image stabilization, or sorry, line stabilization. As you can see, it lags, but again, that's normal. Let's turn that stabilization all the way off, and then you can really see what the tablet can do. Okay. There we go. Much better, much faster. And this is also why I love Manga Studio. The lines, when you really look at it, you can see those lines that you know from manga and from comics. You can really give some line pressure. Absolutely love this. And the speed, well, I have to be honest, it's on par with what I do with my 27-inch Cintiq on a very, very fast Mac Pro. So in all honesty, this really blew me away. And even with image stabilization on, not all the way on, it's still very, very nice, and it tracks very fast. And this is, guys, this is with image stabilization on, or sorry, line stabilization. And of course you can tilt the screen, and of course you can also zoom in. Look at this. This is a really nice, no jagged edges. And if you ever draw with the stylus from Microsoft, you know exactly what I'm looking for at the moment. And these were the ones without image stabilization, or sorry, line stabilization. So no jagged edges, absolutely great lines. So that's it for today. Let's do the conclusion, and then I'm gonna leave you guys for the next episode. Okay, first day that I really worked on the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro. So I did a whole retouching session, I did a little bit of testing with drawing, I did calibration. So I'm ready to give you my first opinion. Now, before, in the previous video, I already showed you some stuff, and I already told you that in essence, I was really impressed with the Mobile Studio Pro. But on paper and on first impressions, you can go incredibly wrong. Sometimes I see gear and I go like, this is it, this is awesome, this is absolutely the thing that I want. And then you start playing with it and you go like, whack, 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 this doesn't work, or this doesn't work, and well, it can go terribly wrong. The Wacom Mobile Studio Pro, well, I'm not going to build attention anymore. It's absolutely what I hoped it to be. It's very, very compact for me. It's a 16-inch. Now, for a lot of people that will be too big. They also have a 13-inch. But for me, I'm not the kind of guy that will sit down in a coffee shop and take out a shiny new MacBook Pro and just put it on the table to do interesting stuff. Which actually probably isn't interesting, because why should you otherwise do it in a coffee shop? But for me, it's a workhorse, it's a production machine. So what I want to do is I want to have the maximum real estate possible. And this machine actually gives me perfect real estate. Of course, it can always be bigger, but then it isn't mobile anymore. And that's actually when we work on a 27-inch Cintiq in the studio. So it works flawlessly for me in that aspect. Windows, well, I still think you have to do a lot of work to change something, but as soon as it runs, I'm not running in an operating system, I'm running in apps. In other words, I'm running Photoshop, I'm running Premiere, I'm running Manga Studio, and I'm using my plugins in there. And then everything works fine, just like I'm used to on the Mac, so no problems there. And when I need to change something, yeah, with Windows, I will still have to get used to it, but it's okay, you know. Windows 10 Pro is a lot better than what I worked with before, which was Windows 8. And let me put it this way, with all the extras I installed, like the Rocket Dock, I pretty much feel at home now when I use Windows. By the way, I did change my mail program to Mozilla Thunderbird. I did think the original mail program that was delivered with Windows 10 Pro is nice, but it doesn't really work. The thing that struck me the most actually is how incredibly fast you get used to an operating system with touch. And I really don't know what Apple is thinking. Like, people don't want touch. Come on, Apple, if you're listening to this, try one. They probably did. But without a doubt, within seconds you're going like, oh, I can touch. Within minutes you go like, oh, I can touch. And in a few hours you go, if you go back to the MacBook, it's actually, oh, I can touch. And when I'm now at Anoweek's laptop, the first thing I do when I go to a website is actually, oh no, I'm on a Mac, so I go back to the touchpad. Now I think that Apple and this is just my personal opinion, is going like this. If we want to do touch, we have to get away with the keyboard, the touchpad, and a pen. And I think that's the wrong way of thinking. If you're going to do touch, you do need a keyboard, you do need a touchpad, and you do need a stylus or pen. Because some things are just way better with a keyboard. I can't imagine typing a book or doing a long blog post on the keyboard that's inside the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro. That's horrendous, that doesn't work. Now, if I have to rename images or if I have to do a quick reply on an email, the built-in keyboard is absolutely awesome. It works, it's great. So, horses for courses. Same with the touchpad. Some things, like editing in Premiere, I really can't do that with touch. It's a terrible experience. When I do it with the new touchpad, it works flawlessly. So, why get away with keyboard and touchpad? Just add touch to the OS, and I think Mac is more than ready for it. So, I hope Apple is listening and the next MacBook Pro will actually be one with touch. Will I then switch back to Mac for my mobile units? No. I'm very sorry to say, but probably the MacBook I have now will be my last mobile MacBook. For a very simple reason. The way that the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro works with the hard keys on the side and the stylus and the pressure sensitivity, it's an experience I'm sure Apple will never incorporate. They won't incorporate hard keys. If they bring out a laptop with touch, you still have the keyboard that's attached to a screen. It isn't comfortable sitting on your lap and doing retouching on a screen of a laptop. That just doesn't work. You see that with all the other devices like the Surface, which actually you can disconnect, but then you don't have hard keys, yoga books or whatever. It's just, I don't know, I tried it and it doesn't work. I need those hard keys, and the only way to get those hard keys when you have a keyboard attached is actually use the keyboard. And then you get this really uncomfortable position where you try to draw on a laptop screen and try to touch the keys. It just isn't comfortable. Overall, very happy. The tethering went great during our workshop, as you could see in the previous video. The retouch itself is just as fast as I do on the 27-inch Cintiq, which of course is obvious because we're used to using hard keys. And overall I'm very happy. The speed is okay, could always be faster of course, but that's me. I use a lot of filters and have a pretty fast workflow. So faster is always okay, but I have the same thing when I sit behind my Mac Pro. Let me put it this way, it didn't at one point at all felt slow. It always felt like, oh, pretty snappy, nice, works, but it can always be faster. And the final thing, the screen. After working on it for a day, I can only say, and I said it in the previous video, the screen is absolutely gorgeous. I don't know how Wacom did it, but it looks very, very matte without losing resolution, which you see with a lot of matte screens. When you look really close to the screen, you absolutely see no pixels. It's an amazing experience. So if you're in a store, pick one up and just look at it. And I promise you, you will probably leave the store with it. Okay, so that's it for today. If you have any questions, please ask them below. And one of the questions I know for sure that will be asked, how about battery life? Battery life is more than enough. Of course, when you do retouching and you do video, the battery will die rather quickly. I estimate at the moment in my workflow, I can probably retouch for about 2–2.5 hours. Now, don't worry, don't shut down this video and go like, the Wacom is crap, because it isn't. On my MacBook Pro, I can also only retouch for about 2.5, maybe 3 hours, that's it. And the reason is very simple. When you do a lot of stuff that's intensive for the RAM, for the hard drive, or the video card, or the CPU, you will drain that battery way faster than when you just watch a movie or do some surfing. So overall battery life, great. I think on par with my old MacBook Pro, which is a late 2014. I didn't test that a lot yet, so soon we're going to use the Mobile Studio Pro in another workshop and we're going to run it just on battery power to see how long it will cope with tethering a Sony camera. So, I think I answered all the questions I got before in this video, and of course there will be more. And again, this is a behind the closed doors, meaning a very rough video, more like a vlog. We will do a more professional video in about maybe 1 or 2 weeks, as soon as I know the machine a little bit better. But overall, very impressed. So, Signing off. Thank you so very much for watching, and please leave your comments below. We really appreciate those. Bye guys. Oh, and before I go, isn't it awesome that you can just put your card inside the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro because you have an SD card reader? I don't know why they ever removed that from the MacBooks.